It's now a year since Russia launched its appalling invasion of Ukraine, and it's not surprising that at this time, after a year in which we've seen terrific suffering for Ukrainian people, but in which we've also seen extraordinary resilience amongst Ukraine's people and its armed forces to resist and to throw back the Russian invasion, it's not surprising that at the 1 year point we're going to hear many people saying, look, this has gone on far too long already, we must make more effort to find a way not of continuing the war but of finding a peace. Now I think none of us who are sane, sensible people would disagree that we prefer peace to war, but I think there are things we need to think about very seriously when we think about what sort of peace, what sort of end to the war in Ukraine would be a just peace and which would be a peace that was enduring. There are going to be arguments, perfectly well-intentioned, that tell us that we need to find compromises. But I think before we rush into what may sound on the surface like a great proposal, I think we need to ask ourselves, what part of Putin's plan to extinguish Ukraine's independence and sovereignty are we meant to find a compromise with? Some people refer back to the Minsk agreements, which were agreements negotiated in terrific haste in the context of Russia's previous invasion of Ukraine in 2014. Those would not be a great model, and they offer us, in my view, very little that helps us work towards a just and effective and enduring solution to the current conflict in Ukraine. There's also the mention of the possibility of simply finding a way to cut off the war, simply freezing the war. If we can't find a solution, let's freeze the conflict where it is. There are people who will remind us that that is what happened in the Korean War, but the fact is that 70 years on, that war is still, in principle, not over. If we want to look at any lesson from the Korean War, it makes sense to look at the ways in which South Korea's security was underpinned and its sovereignty was defended throughout those 70 years since the war finished in 1953. And those countries who are supporting Ukraine in its defense against Russian aggression need to think very carefully about what the nature is of the security guarantee that can be given in future to Ukraine that really genuinely provides an answer to the question of what does it take to get the Russian threat to go away indefinitely. A solution to the war, or a so-called solution to the war, that still leaves in place the threat that Russia at any time can move back in, can reinvent or reheat the fantasies that it has about its entitlement to ownership of Ukraine. Any solution or any purported solution that leaves that attitude still in place, that leaves that threat in place, is not going to be a proper and enduring solution to the current war.